Hey, 7th grade and 8th grade. This video is for Thursday, April 16th. It was really good to see a lot of you on our class Zoom call. We talked about quite a bit, so that call got recorded and I will upload and post it along with this video so that you can rewatch if you weren't able to join us for the whole thing. I know some of you had to hop on and hop off. We spent quite a bit of time introducing the book, thinking about the different materials that we're going to use with it. And so I wanted to be sure that you knew where to find all that information. So your assignments for today, Thursday, are to read pages 23 through 40. There are audio files to go along with that I recorded. So I will post a link to those if you want to listen as you read. In your large packet that looks like this, you're going to be answering the questions about pages 23 through 40. The first one says, "Why does Jordan say?" and then gives a quote. So you'll be answering those 8 questions, and then you'll also be finding these vocabulary words. Again, as we talked about on the call, the best place to look for vocabulary words is dictionary.com, or to use if you have a dictionary at your house. Once you find definitions for the 6 words, you're going to write 2 of them in a sentence. The final activity you have today is to do basketball rule number 1, which is here. And on our Zoom call today, we went through a PowerPoint presentation talking about making connections to a text. So I will again post that PowerPoint for you, but as a review, those are also written in the front of your book. So there's 3 kinds of connections that we're interested in thinking about. Text to self, which is when you read something, the text, and you connect it to yourself, your own life, what you know about it. So when I read this book, I told you guys I don't know a ton about basketball, so I don't make a lot of connections to myself, but I do have a family. So in the parts of the story that talk about family, I make a lot of connections to my own family. There's also text-to-text connections. So you might read something and think about something else you've read, and Sports Illustrated, or maybe a situation that reminds you of a favorite Bible verse or Bible story. So a text-to-text connection is when you make a connection between a text you're reading, like the crossover, and some other text that you know about. And then finally, there's text to world, which is when you make a connection between a text you're reading and what is happening in the world. It might not be something personal, a connection to your own life, but when a book talks about sickness and you think about the pandemic, or when a book talks about the reality of problems at school and you make a connection to a news story that you heard about public education or something like that. So as you're reading in the crossover, you're going to notice that every so often the story kind of takes a break and there's a 1-page poem called A Basketball Rule. And there's 10 of those throughout the story. These are things that Josh's dad has tried to pass on to his son, and what he calls them basketball rules. They're analogies, they're ways of thinking about life. And so throughout this story, you're going to have these 10 basketball rules. And what you're going to be doing in your reader's response book is responding or thinking critically about those basketball rules. So what that means is, as you encounter them, today you're going to be writing about basketball rule number 1. And you're going to be doing 2 things. You're going to read the rule, and I'll read it to you now. In the game of life, your family is the court, and the ball is your heart. No matter how good you are, no matter how down you get, always leave your heart on the court. So you're going to read that rule, and then once you've read it, you're going to do 2 things. You're first going to tell me, what does that mean? What is Josh's dad trying to say? Why is this one of the pieces of information that he wants to pass on to his children? What do you think is the heart of this? What is the meaning of the rule? First thing, what does it mean? Second thing, what connection do you make? So again, you can flip back. There's these connections we're thinking about: text to self, text to text, text to world. So once you thought about what does it mean, how do I connect to it? Does this remind me of a Bible verse? Does this remind me of a different story that I read? Does this remind me of an experience I had in my own life or a news story? So I want you to tell me on this page, what does this mean and how do I connect to it? Those are your 2 questions. And you're going to be doing that throughout this whole book. And I really want you to take your time with this. Don't just fill it in really quick and call it good. Sit for a minute and think about, what is this rule trying to teach, and how can I relate to it? I think, especially because it's work from home and you're just trying to get stuff done and check it off the list, it can be hard to do. But it would be great for you to sort of sit with some of these assignments, the poetry that you're writing, the reader's response, and don't try to rush it. Maybe give yourself like 10 whole minutes just to sit there and think about this. Because here's the thing, good readers and good writers are people who think deeply about what they've read. You're not just trying to skim it, get the right answer, and move on. That isn't a very transformative way of reading. But people who can learn to think deeply are people who really sit with what they've read and sort of chew it over and give it the opportunity to connect to things that they know about in the world. Okay? The other thing you're working on right now, which we talked about a lot in our Zoom call, is your simile poem. You're writing a poem to introduce yourself, and you're going to use similes. So we did a couple of exercises about what is a simile. Remember, it's a comparison that uses like or as, and I am so excited to read your poems about yourselves using similes. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm here every day on email between 9 a.m. and 2. If you email me after that, I'll be back in touch the next morning. And I can't wait to see what you guys submit. Today, in addition to your simile poem from yesterday and the quiz from Tuesday, today's assignment is to send in a snapshot of what you write on this page, basketball rule number 1. Okay? Hang in there. Miss you guys.